Good morning, my lovelies. Welcome to today's video lesson. I hope you're doing well. Let's get straight into it. Today we are going to be reading Act 4, Scene 1, which is the only scene in Act 4. And we're going to look at how Prospero has punished Ferdinand and how he's going to punish the three men who are planning on usurping him. Pause the video and get the title date and LO written down now, please. Okay, if you're back, that means you're ready to complete the do now. Please answer these questions in full sentences based on Act 3, Scene 3. Pause the video and complete those now, please. Alright, if you're back, that means you're ready to make any purple pen corrections. So, Ariel appears as a harpy, which is that half bird, half woman. Ariel tells the men that their shipwreck and the loss of Ferdinand are punishment for endangering Prospero and Miranda when they banish them. When Ariel makes the banquet disappear, the men draw their swords, but the men can't attack him because the swords become heavy as a result of Ariel's magic. And Alonso tries to drown himself when reminded of the likely death of his son. Pause the video and make sure that your answers are accurate, like the ones on screen now, please. Okay, if you're back, that means we're ready to read a little summary of Act 4, Scene 1. Now, we are going to do some work on the kind of different plots because there's kind of a few different stories that happen at once. And some of the scenes are really, really long, but we are going to focus kind of on the key parts of those scenes, and then we'll develop our knowledge as we continue to work through The Tempest. So in Act 4, Scene 1, Prospero finally realised that Ferdinand and Miranda are in love with each other, and they've passed his tests, so he offers Miranda to Ferdinand as his wife. And the idea of offering Miranda as if she's some kind of possession is important about in our understanding of beliefs about women in this time. Prospero calls Ariel to help make a celebration, and the celebration consists of spirits that perform, and it's a wonderful occasion. That's not really a part of the text that would come up in an essay question, but it's important that you know that has happened. Amongst this, suddenly Prospero realizes the three men who have set out to murder him, and he instructs Ariel to leave some of his kind of clothing and his robes on a tree in hopes that it tempts the men into his cell. And then Caliban, Stefano, and Trinculo arrive, and they smell really, really bad, and they're damp and sodden wet. Stefano and Trinculo are ignoring Caliban's plea to continue their mission, as he warns them that if they hesitate or take too long, Prospero might catch them, so Caliban is desperate. At that moment, Prospero and Ariel enter with spirits, and these spirits are disguised as hunters and hounds, which are like dogs. The three conspirators flee, and the spirits in the shape of these hunters and hounds pursue them. Prospero realizes the power that he has over his enemies, and he promises that Ariel shall soon be free again, and we'll see whether or not he sticks to that promise. All right, let's read a couple of key extracts from Act 4, Scene 1. So you kind of probably saw from the process yesterday that I was reading the extract to you and I was just clarifying some of the language. I know it's very challenging, so it's super important that you're not skipping through the video, so I can explain to you the language that is used here. So, Prospero is speaking to Ferdinand here about his love for Miranda. He says, "If I have too austerely punished you, your compensation makes amends, for I have given you here a third of mine own life, or that for which I live, who once again I tender to thy hand." He says, if I have punished you too harshly, I'm ready to make up for it now, compensate you and make amends. because I'm giving you a third of my life, everything I live for, which is my daughter Miranda. He says, all thy vexations were but my trials of thy love, and thou hast strangely stood the test. He says, all thy troubles, vexations, I put you through were to test your love for her, and you seem to have passed the test, stood the test. He says, here, afore heaven, I ratified this, my rich gift. He says, as heaven is my witness, as God is my witness, I give you my daughter as my valuable gift. Again, the idea that Miranda is a possession that's being passed from her dad, one man, to her husband, another man. He says, oh, Ferdinand, do not smile at me that I boast her off, for thou shalt find she will outstrip all praise and make it halt behind her. Ferdinand seems so happy that he's smiling at Prospero for bragging about how amazing Miranda is, how boasting about her. And Prospero says, you don't need to smile, because you'll see soon enough that she will outshine all of the praise that is given to her by anyone. All right. So what I would like you to do is answer these 3 questions in 4 sentences, please. How has Prospero punished Ferdinand in the earlier scenes? What tasks and kind of things has he asked Ferdinand to do? How does Prospero compensate Ferdinand? When you get compensation, you're kind of being made up for something that's gone wrong. So, for example, if you have an injury somewhere because the floor is wet and there is no wet floor sign, you can get compensation for that injury, which would be money for your injuries and all your troubles. And also, why does Prospero ask Ferdinand not to smile at him? Okay, pause the video and complete these in 4 sentences now, please. All right, if you're back, that means we're ready to move on to another section. And this is Ariel arriving after they've had a celebration for Ferdinand and Miranda's kind of new agreement to be married with the spirits. And Ariel is giving Prospero an update. He says, I told you, sir, that they were red hot with drinking, so full of valour that they smote the air for breathing in their faces, beat the ground for kissing of their feet, yet always bending towards their project. He says that they are red hot with drinking, and they are so drunk, and they're so like full of fake courage because of the alcohol, that they were getting angry at the air for breathing in their faces and beating the ground for touching their feet, but always keeping their plan in mind, their plan to kill Prospero. Ariel says, then I beat my tabor, which is a drum, at which, like unbacked colts, they pricked their ears, advanced their eyelids, lifted up their noses as they smelt music. So I charmed their ears, that calf-like they, my lowing followed through, toothed briars, sharp furzes, pricking goss and thorns, which entered their frail shins. He says, with my music I charmed them, I enchanted them so much that they followed the music, which is coming from Ariel, through thorn bushes and prickly shrubs and kind of really painful areas, and they tore up their shins, which is the front part of your lower leg. He says, at last I left them in the filthy mantled pool beyond your cell. He says, I left them in that really smelly pond that sits behind your room, and they're like, that's why they smell so bad, and they are covered in stinky water when they arrive at Prospero's cell. All right, let's answer these questions, please, in 4 sentences. What does Ariel use to make the men follow him? What does Ariel lead them through? And where does Ariel leave the men? Pause the video and complete those questions now for me, please. All right, if you're back, that means you're ready to complete the final extract. Now, this is just after Caliban, Stefano, and Trinculo have arrived and Stefano and Trinculo are kind of messing around, primarily trying on the robes that Ariel has left outside on the tree for them. And Caliban is desperate to get them in before they get caught, but unfortunately they do. So Prospero says, "Fury, Fury there, Tyrant there, hark, hark." He's sending his hounds, the spirits, to go and attack the men. And Caliban, Stefano, and Trinculo are driven out. They're chased away. And he goes to speak to Ariel now. "Go charge my goblins that they grind their joints with dry convulsions, shorten up their sinews with aged cramp, and more pinch spotted make them than pard or cat of mountain." He says, "Go and order my goblin servants to make these men's bones ache," giving them muscle cramps, convulsions, and giving them more bruises than a leopard has spots. You know, leopards have those spots all over their body, and he wants the men to have that many bruises, which is incredibly cruel. And it kind of shows that power is getting to Prospero. It's corrupting him. It's making him transgress and do immoral things. Ariel says, "Hark, they roar." He's like, "Listen to the men. They're so scared. They're howling." And Prospero says, "Let them be hunted soundly. At this hour lie at my mercy all mine enemies. Shortly shall all my labours end, and thou shalt have the air at freedom. For a little follow, and do me service." He says, "Let them be hunted. They deserve it." He says, "Now all my enemies are at my mercy." He's saying that all his enemies he is in control of. They are in predicaments and in situations because of Prospero's power. And it's a realization about how powerful he actually is. And he says, "Soon my work will be done, and I will let you free, but just obey me for a little bit longer." Prospero has a habit of saying to Ariel, you know, "I'll free you, just do something else for me." And then he says, "I'll free you, well done, but just do one more thing for me." So I wonder if he will actually let him free. All right, these are your final 3 questions. So pause the video and complete these now. Who are Fury and Tyrant? How does Prospero intend further to punish the 3 culprits? And how does Prospero transgress due to his power in this scene? You can pause the video and complete these. And once you're done, please make sure that you're sending me pictures of your work to my email so I can have a look and make sure that it is completed accurately. I look forward to seeing your amazing work, and I will speak to you in the next video. Well done.